Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. This video, assuming I timed it correctly, will be released 18 years to the day from the premiere of Drawn Together. For those of you who don't know, Drawn Together is an animated parody of The Real World, which is widely recognized as the world's first reality show. The idea behind Drawn Together is to bring a whole bunch of characters who are based on various stock characters used in animation, and bring them together into one house so they can do challenges and just generally interact and go on shenanigans, because that's the kind of thing that would be funny and would make for interesting television. And I have to admit, when I first heard about the show, I thought it would be kind of interesting. However, the problem with Drawn Together is that it came out right during the initial bloat of adult cartoons and adult animated shows. A bloat that really saw no one know what to do with these characters except make them all crass, vulgar, and hedonistic, and and short-sighted, and just generally jerks, animated jerks. And it's somehow more interesting to watch because it's subversive. Because wow, look at this media meant for kids, and look at how they're doing things that are not kid friendly. That kind of thing. And this is especially true for Drawn Together, which is basically just sluts and violent people all crammed together and making each other's lives miserable. And it's not even really in a fun way, or at least not not that much. And still, you could do a lot more for starting from that premise. So that's why, to me, this really comes across as this show really has a lot of wasted potential. And it is that wasted potential that I want to recapture and also reinvent for a future generation of television. Because, as I've said, Drawn Together first premiered 18 years ago. The media landscape has changed quite a bit since then. And if I am to reboot it, then I think any reboot I intend to make should reflect that. I'm not going to talk about seasons, storylines, or any of that stuff. I'm solely going to talk about the characters and who I would bring into the house. What characters and what character combinations I think would add the most would add the most character drama and also create the most comedy, if that makes sense. From that perspective, I have to say that not all character archetypes are bad. And in fact, I'm going to start with the two characters from the initial Drawn Together that I would want to port over into my reboot. Starting with Toots Braunstein, the Betty Boop ripoff. Betty Boop is an animated character from the 20s and 30s era of American animation, and it is known for being very risque and touching upon various adult topics, but in a safer, more all ages kind of way. And okay, safe in all ages is kind of a relative term, but still. And Toots herself is basically a star of that era and behaves very much like a jaded former star would. She is constantly drunk, constantly talking about the glory days while also simultaneously hating them, and she basically has no more fucks to give, and just goes through anything in her life, doing the first thing that comes to her head because she just can. Like that's an interesting character, and that is something I want, or in this case someone I would want to see into this new show. Okay, next character I want to preserve is Princess Clara. Princess Clara is based on the Disney princesses, because keep in mind, Drawn Together came out shortly after the Disney Renaissance era of animation, and Princess Clara is meant to be a parody of that. She is she is above all she's above all else sheltered and naive, and holds various preconceptions, various wrongful preconceptions related to related to race, related to religion, related to general virtue, and to some extent even to femininity itself. And I do want to keep that that kind of character into this into this new series, because I think bringing her over with more uh, liberal figures would would make for an interesting contrast, especially as she also has some interest, some attraction towards that which up until then has been denied for her. So yeah, these are the two characters I want to keep within my reboot. Now let's talk about all the characters I intend to change, starting with Spanky Ham. Spanky Ham is based on the various Flash animations or general internet animations that have been circulating around the time in the in the circa early 2000s internet. And as such, he is very brash. He is very rude. He has a lot of uh, edgy um, humor. A lot of toilet humor. A lot of racial humor. A lot of a lot of sexist humor. So yeah, these are the kinds of things these are the kinds of things he peddles. And suffice it to say, this would not fly today. But also, it's way too lazy, and uh, therefore I wanted to try something else. The problem with him, or with figuring out who should be his replacement, is that, well, the thing well internet animation has changed quite a bit since since the early Flash days. Now you have like fully professional animation productions out online, distributed exclusively through the internet, that have garnered substantial followings. So you can't really you can't really take one singular character uh, and use that character as shorthand for all of that. What you need to do instead, and what I decided to do, is to look at the ways in which the internet itself is used when it comes to media creation. And who does that? Who does that these days? Well, I can say it's no longer edgy 13-year-olds, it's autistic 30 somethings. This character here, in case you don't recognize him, is Bartholomew Oobleck from Ruby. But I don't necessarily want this character to be in the show. Maybe a character who is based on him, but who would similarly be, you know, have a maybe have a pristine appearance above the neck, but be otherwise generally disheveled, because because he doesn't really care. And I'm not saying this character himself is autistic, but I'm saying he does have a certain manic energy that I think fits the typical profile of modern internet users and internet animation fans a little bit better. A little bit better. So Spanky Ham's replacement would have to also manifest that kind of manic energy, and be attracted to 10,000 different things at once, and always looking around, zooming around, searching for his next fix in in entertainment, in knowledge, and in that kind of thing. He would also have his own abilities. Don't get me wrong. I imagine he would be an excellent like inventor inventor, maybe even magician, because in Ruby, where this character is from, magic and science coexist. So I imagine this character could be both a magic user and a scientist, as I said, inventor, and I think that could add a lot of potential for comedic developments within the story. As for who he should be, well, for who he is, and as from a personality perspective, well, as I said, his main trait would be mania. So don't really focus on anything on much else regarding how personable he is or whether or not he has any vices, because that all is that all is secondary to his pursuit of knowledge, or his pursuit of various innovations. And when I mean anything else, I literally mean anything else, including politics. Like he could go all blood and soil in one episode and then introduce himself with his pronouns in the next. That's the kind of manic energy I'm talking about, because that is what I think would fit this show, just just that a little bit better. Okay, next up, Captain Hero. Captain Hero, the Superman knockoff, or in general, the character who's based on the stock superhero character, who also happens to be a sexist, racist, bimbo man whore, and a necrophiliac too. But that's but that's beside the point. Like, I think we all get what what this character is supposed to be. Like he is supposed to embody all of these heroic archetypes, but in fact he is the exact opposite, and he is a big idiot. That is also a thing that crops up every now and then. A problem is his character is way too samey. Like, the idea is that he, like I said, his basic idea is that he is a himbo man whore, very hedonistic. But then again, all the characters in this series are very hedonistic, so there isn't really anything about him that really makes him stand out. And also, making the Superman ripoff, or XP as is known in some cases, be an idiot is way too played out. Like, way too played out. Especially since, and also, public perception of Superman has changed quite a bit, and people are starting to see that he is, not just some dumbass with strength, but a fully fledged character who is capable of displaying, whose main virtue isn't the fact that he is strong, but how he chooses to use that strength. And I think that is the main aspect that would need to be flipped, so to say. My inspiration for the Captain Hero archetype would not be Superman, but would be Captain America, or more precisely, the Captain America from the Ultimates universe. Also, I'd like to specify all the images you see in this you'll see over the course of this video are taken from respective wikias. I do not full credit goes to their owners. I do not claim any ownership over over these pictures. They are used under. I am using these, or taking them under fair use. Anyway, disclaimer aside, Ultimate Captain America. He is somewhat notorious for for generally being a heroic archetype, but a heroic archetype would have been in the 40s, so he still carries a lot of the signature, a lot of the typical prejudices that would have been held at the time. So he is still, to some extent, so he's still racist and sexist and all of that, and he thinks that white men are the are the default in society. And but he is still generally heroic. He'll still like uh, put his life on the line if it comes to it. But he does it because of he sees it as his duty, as something he has to do. He doesn't do it out of respect or out of care. And so playing around with that, and maybe even being very condescending to everyone else within the house, claiming that they are all somehow inferior or messed up compared to him. I think that would add a lot of to the dynamics and comedy within the show. When it comes to when it comes to how he chooses to entertain himself, I kind of want him to be sex averse, but be very interested in drinking. However, even though he was very interested in drinking, he should be a lightweight, because I think that adds to a lot of comedic potential. Playing around with these expectations of masculinity that would be placed around around the Captain Hero archetype. Anyway, moving along, we've got Ling Ling, aka how the fuck did Nintendo not sue Drawn Together? Okay, seriously, how much more obvious can a Pikachu ripoff be? Anyway, rant aside, Ling Ling is, as I've already said, based off of Pikachu and generally Pokemon and other shows that were inspired by Pokemon. And his general archetype is that he is that he wants to inspire or impress, and and in general, so like keep his honor, or how obvious is it that I've rarely seen this show? Anyway, the thing about Ling Ling is that he is very much a pastiche of a whole lot of different things that do not really fit together. He is meant to be a cute creature, but he also has this more heroic, more heroic or more driven streak, and you can very much have that, but with him it doesn't really mesh, or if it does mesh, it's it's not really played that well throughout the series as a whole. And if I am to be honest, there are lots of ways in which his actions deviate from that. If I were to reboot him, when it comes to the reboot, the thing about Ling Ling is he is based on a particular perception of anime that was only possible to manifest within the Western world right at the time of his conception. Because as of right now, the most popular kinds of anime aren't cute critter stuff, but rather shonen battle series. In general, the kind of show where you have a young protagonist and it's pretty much 90% action, and the archetype or stock main character for that kind of show isn't Pikachu or a Pikachu knockoff. It's this guy. Yep. I want someone who is based somewhat on Son Goku to to represent all of anime. And truth be told, there is a lot of things you could do with this kind of character who is brash, immature, perhaps kind, but but that doesn't really shine through. He has to choose to be kind, and most of the time he does. Most of the time he doesn't. He chooses to instead showcase his power, showcase that he deserves to be taken seriously and be respected. I imagine he would clash a lot with Captain Hero because of that, because they both represent different kinds of masculinity, and they would constantly go, I'm more of a man than you," something like that. And while there is a lot of uh, comedy that can be drawn from this character, from a character being immature, brash, and generally just rushing in, or generally just rushing into places where he doesn't belong and having no sense of boundaries. What I really want to make this character a little bit more distinguished, and in order to make that happen, I want to make him transcendently stupid. By that I mean that he has a lot of knowledge in his head, but he doesn't really know how to how to store that knowledge. So he will uh, he will hear something and recognize what it is, but but not realize that it is not, and that what he's actually heard is meant in a different context. For example, imagine the Captain Hero archetype telling him, "You're not some kind of faggot, are you?" And then, sorry for the slur, by the way. And then this character would go, "What? No. How can I be a bundle of sticks?" That's the kind of transcendental stupidity I mean. Like he knows stuff, but he has no idea how how stuff would fit together. Okay. Next up on the chopping block, we got Foxxy Love. Foxxy Love is meant to be is meant to be based on Scooby-Doo shows, and most notably Scooby-Doo ripoffs that Hanna-Barbera pulled out in the late 60s, early 70s. And the idea behind her general getup is that she is supposed to be both the Freddy and the Scooby of her team somehow. And also she is meant to be very very sexualized. This is not some kind of redesign for the show. At least I don't think so. Like, she was meant to always look like this. Like, she was, like, even in front of kids. And all I can think of is this character has aged the absolute worst, especially when considering the the kind of humor that was built around her, which a lot of time was racialized and in the worst ways possible. The fact that she was also meant to be the team pet, yeah, as a black woman, yeah, not no, no, no. Foxxy Love definitely needs a makeover. Thing is, you can't really make her over by sticking to that particular archetype, because Scooby Doo as a franchise has changed quite a bit since the early 2000s. They they're mostly known now. They're mostly now known for making a whole bunch of direct direct to video movies, as well as Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. So which brought a lot of respect to that to the name, to the IP, and really showed that there is a lot more potential when it comes to using that kind of those kinds of characters within a storytelling medium. And also their ripoffs have all but disappeared because they were not able to showcase that depth, and therefore using that in any way for this kind of character would not work. So instead, I'm going to resort to another archetypal Hanna-Barbera cartoon of the same age, Space Ghost. Yeah, you can think of. I still want. Don't get me wrong. I still want Foxxy Love to be a or the character who is based on Foxxy Love to be a black woman, but she could be a legacy character, taking over the mantle of a the kind of character that would have been the main character in a Hanna-Barbera superhero show. And I've chosen Space Ghost because, well, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and also Harvey Birdman, Attorney of Law, is actually based on Space Ghost. Who'd have thunk it? So yeah, and you can call her something like Cosmic Spirit if you don't want to go if you want to still stay somewhat subtle with your parody. Personality wise, I think I want her to be the kind of like the same way as Lana from Archer, as in she would be the most competent and straight-laced character in a sea of a whole bunch of idiots. There are some jokes she could pull off, and in fact I imagine she could be very sassy. Like think about how think about I'm gonna go to Star Trek now. Think about the interactions between McCoy and Spock. McCoy is often very bigoted towards Spock, and Spock always responds to that with some kind of witty one-liner, and that really helps make their relationship seem endearing rather than abusive. And that is the kind of dynamic that was attempted to be emulated in Star Trek: Next Generation with Pulaski and Data. However, it didn't work because Data doesn't have that kind of personality that would really make that kind of dynamic work. So, but the Foxxy Love, or let's call her Cosmic Spirit. Cosmic Spirit would have that and would be able to respond to snark whenever whenever she sees other characters doing something very obviously stupid. And also, as I said, she would be the generally the most competent, least likely to get into drama character. I think, yeah, that is how I see this. This is how I see this character going, or you know, this is the direction I see for this character. Maybe you could very much make at least one episode about how she is, I don't know, some kind of Auntie Harriet or Uncle Tom or whatever you want to call it, about how she sold out to white people. And I really hope that she calls that out. In assuming there is an episode, and I don't know, I don't hope, I know she would call that out in an episode where that kind of thing would come up. Anyway, well, racial politics aside, and yes, I now realize she would clash with a Captain Hero archetype a lot, but yeah, I think but however, if you've watched so far, you should be able to figure out that I there is a reason this this particular character configuration is how I chose to structure everything, and you should be able to see the kinds of feuds and jokes that can be built off of these characters. Okay, next up we have Wooldor Sockdorf, who is the most obvious ripoff of the Drawn Together cast, namely of SpongeBob. And as such, he is generally very naive, very innocent, and also gets dragged in with a lot of the shenanigans that other people get into within the house. And I don't think that makes for a very interesting character, as I think I've explained. Well, what I want to do instead is, and also, even though SpongeBob is still airing right now, if I'm not mistaken, the prototypical modern cartoon does not look like SpongeBob. Rather, it looks like Owl House, and therefore, the character who would replace Wooldorf would be someone like Luz Nocera from the Owl House. I want this character, however, to be agender, or otherwise genderqueer, like so with they them pronouns. They could still be femme presenting, something like that, but they would be agender. You can imagine the kind of confusion that could elicit from some characters in this house, and I imagine they would perhaps be similarly naive, but perhaps a little bit more enterprising, a little bit more willing to delve into things and actually cause some mischief. I think because and yeah, that's kind of what I expect. That's kind of what I think would make this character a little bit. And that's what, I can't talk anymore. This is hard. So for the people who stream every day, you have my full respect. Anyway, back to this. The Wooldor substitute. I haven't really worked out a name yet, but I can say that, as I said, femme presenting genderqueer, they them, and otherwise having their own initiatives, getting and other people getting other people into trouble, and but also figuring out a lot of things and a lot of solutions to the problems. They should, they should still be intelligent and competent, even though at various points their their naivety and lack of life experience would would get in the way and would make their lives just that little bit more difficult, that little bit more that little bit more weird. Anyway, moving on. Last but not least, Xandir, who is very effeminate and very gay. And in fact, pretty much everything I've seen of Xandir is just a series of gay jokes. And yeah, I think he aged the second worst out of every character in this house, because there is because there is nothing about because there really isn't anything about being gay that is seen as intrinsically that it was really seen as intrinsically funny anymore. So you really need to add just in something else, something more something more directly funny. And given Xandir I think is supposed to be based on cartoons that are in turn based on video games, or rather he would be based on games that have spent some time as 2D and then move to 3D and have a lot of very effeminate looking characters. My thoughts on that are that looking effeminate and seeming gay. Well, that's not much of a joke, and it's also not very. That doesn't really tell anything about the general medium. So if you really want to say something about the medium and about the and about the kind of stock characters that it would inhabit, you really have to look at something from within the history of video games more generally and find something that appeals to as many generations of gamers as possible. And as far as I've been able to ascertain, the best choice would be this: the knight from Hollow Knight. The other genderqueer, or rather agender, or actually wait, the Owl House inspired character can be genderqueer, and this Hollow Knight inspired character could be agender or genderless, but still use the same pronouns, they them. Leaving some of the other characters wonder, wait, is that the same thing? Or yeah. Anyway, as far as his personality goes, I want him to flip-flop between two extremes. Like extreme number 1, awkward little weirdo, and extreme number 2, ultra badass. Like, think about in South Park, the dichotomy between Kenny and Mysterion. Now imagine that kind of dichotomy, but there is no change in costume. Like, every time you see him, you never know if you're gonna see an awkward little weirdo just sitting somewhere and making space for himself, or if you're gonna see an ultra badass who can take out enemies hundreds of times the size. Like, that's something that I would find, that's something that I think would work tremendously, especially if one were to consider the potential within stuff like, you know, action scenes or various puzzle sections and the like. I think in being able to solve anything and then just go back to kind of like a quirky little you know, a quirky little being who is who is kind of uncomfortable being there. I think that would make for an interesting contrast. And yeah, those were my suggestions for a potential drawn together reboot. I'm sorry if my energy wasn't there. It's been a long weekend. It's been a long weekend, and I've had a lot of things to work on, and I didn't really and as I said, I enjoyed the idea of drawn together more than the actual series itself. So reworking that working that took a lot out of me, even though uh, even though it's not really obvious. I I'm kind of missing the words with which to, you know, with which to say it. Anyway, that was it. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and maybe even share it wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to my reboot suggestion, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about more bookish / literature topics, a link to which you will find in the description down below, right past my social media, which I also suggest you check out should you feel so inclined. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.